Hello and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to paint a beautiful, colorful garden with an ocean behind it. So a garden by the bay, and I'm going to be introducing you to some new colors. Firstly is this Cobra solvent-free oil paint called Naples Yellow Red. It's kind of a salmon color or peach color, and this one is emerald green. So I've got a colorful palette today, and paintings like this, this is a 20 by 24 painting of a garden scene. And I've used all of these colors in the making of this painting. And let me show you how to mix those colors as we paint a new small one of Garden by the Bay. First, I'd like to introduce you to my palette of colors. I have Naples Yellow Red, Titanium White, Cadmium Lemon, Cadmium Yellow Medium, Cadmium Yellow Deep, Vermillion, Pyro Red, Quinacridone Rose, Madder Lake Deep, Ultramarine Blue, Cobalt Turquoise, and Emerald Green. So some substitutions, if you'd like to make some. For Vermillion, you can substitute Cadmium Red or Cadmium Red Light, or you could mix Pyro Red with one of your yellows and come out with something pretty similar. I put a lot of colors on my palette today because I thought it would be fun to introduce you to these colors so you can see what their mixing properties are like. For Quinacridone Rose, you could substitute Permanent Rose or Permanent Red Violet. You could also substitute Primary Magenta. For Madder Lake Deep, you could substitute Alizarin Crimson or Caput Mortem Violet, which is an earth color. For Ultramarine Blue, you could also substitute Cobalt Blue. Or Permanent Blue Red shade, which is a more violet shade of Permanent Blue, which typically is a greener blue. And for Turquoise, you could substitute Permanent Green Deep. And for Emerald Green, you could substitute a Cobalt Green. But anyway, those are some of the substitutions if you would like to make some. And with that, let's get started. So this is a pretty simple drawing. It's going to be a lot of big color shapes and a path that kind of veers around and disappears behind all the flowers. We have a horizon which is very subtle. Subtle because there's a lot of atmosphere, and the edge of the horizon where it meets the sky is a very soft edge. We have a few clouds drifting in from right to left, so there's an indication of a nice sea breeze. And all these flowers are framed by some very dark trees at the top, and that dark deep green really sets off all the purples and yellows and other colors in the foreground. So I'm going to draw with Ultramarine Blue and Madder Lake. And I'm going to just indicate the path. So you want to come up about a third of the way on your canvas to start the path. And it just kind of meanders along like that, and it's going to disappear. Your horizon is going to be about here. And I am choosing not to put in the distant cliff and sea rocks. I just want to have this nice big shape of the blue ocean. And then I'm going to have some clouds here drifting in from right to left. Now here is the section of flowers that are on the opposite side of the path from the viewer. So just make some kind of squiggly marks for those. And then for the flowers on the foreground, they're going to kind of come up and over this path. And there's some upward motion here with the yellow ones. You can draw in this color shape for the tall purple spiky flowers, which I think are lavender, but I'm not sure. And a few other flowers and color shapes here. You just want to make sure that they overlap the path in kind of a nice lacy way. Then back here, I'm going to get a little more pigment. This is where you're going to have the dark shapes of the the trees that frame all the flowers in the foreground. And that's going to go right up off the top of the canvas. You're going to have kind of a dark upper corner, but we're going to overlay some of that dark with some long brush strokes of flowers that pop up in front of that. So very simple drawing for this painting. I'm going to be mixing most of my colors with a brush, and I'm going to use some palette knife strokes today as well. First, I'm going to start blocking in my big color shapes. And I'm going to start right away with the blue ocean. So I'm going to use ultramarine blue, the turquoise, and some titanium white. And I just want to block in a nice big color shape. And I'm just coming in right over some of the flowers that are going to be overlaying the ocean, and want to keep my horizon straight. Now I want to block in the color shape for the sky. So remember, in all landscape painting, the sky is always going to be the lightest overall big color shape. And I want to make sure that my sky encompasses the canvas so coming over to the left vertical third. So I want it to encompass the right 2/3 of the canvas. And the sky is going to be darker at the top, and then it's going to get lighter as it goes down towards the horizon. And also a little bit rosy. So I mixed some of the rose color into this blue. And I'm going to have that nice soft gray horizon, but it's going to be a rosy gray. So having a little bit of red at the horizon makes it look like there's atmosphere. It could be fog, could be distant clouds. Now I'm going to make some strokes for the clouds that move from right to left. So I want my brush strokes to kind of be made from right to left. So I'm putting my brush down from the upper right and pulling it down to the lower left. Now I'm going to just step back and take a look. So now I'm going to put some white into the clouds. And I'm just mixing straight titanium white into this color. So I'm picking up a little bit of the color underneath. See how I'm rotating my brush, turning my brush? And I'm going to have some clouds drifting up above as well. So I'm going to pick up some more ultramarine blue, more of my rose color. And brush that over some of my blue sky. Now I'm going to rinse my brush. And I'm going to make some clouds. Now these clouds are closer to the viewer, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to my white. I want these clouds to be a warmer white. So I want these to fade back and these to come forward. Now we've got a nice sky started. Now I'm going to take my palette knife and I'm going to make a few strokes on top of this white cloud section. I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow in with it again. I want to have some thicker paint for the clouds. So I'm just putting the paint on the back side of my knife. So I've got a good amount of it back here. And I'm just going to kind of lay it on very gently, pulling it right over the center of some of these darker marks. And I'm going to smooth out a couple of the bumps, like this. And we've got some really beautiful fluffy clouds. Now I'm going to put a little bit of the rose and violet in to this mixture. And I'm going to make some of the palette knife strokes to give the clouds a little more dimension. And I'm making those strokes from upper right across and down to lower left. And I also want to give the clouds a dark bottom. So I've added a little more blue. I'm just going across the bottom of the clouds here, like that. So value creates dimension. That means you need to have a light and a dark. And for clouds, they should be 1 or 2 value shades apart, very subtle shifts. I'm going to bring some of this same dark color, but I mixed it with the white, so it's a little bit lighter, but the same shade. And I'm just going to smooth over my clouds down at the bottom. And now I'm going to wipe off my knife, and I'm going to put the sky in a little thicker as well. So I'm going to use the turquoise and titanium white. So I want to have the same value, same color, and I just want to put it on a little thicker. And I want to bring it down just to the top edge of the clouds. And then I'm going to smooth out some of those bumps very gently. So now my clouds are really popping. And I'm going to mix up a little more of this blue with white, only I'm going to make it lighter. And I'm going to put that underneath of the clouds. Still need it to be a little bit lighter. I want to just show some of that sky peeking through between the clouds that are bigger at the top and closer, and the ones that are down below, closer to the horizon. So now I'm going to pick up some white and a little rose, mix it with this blue, so I get a nice beautiful purple. And I'm going to go over these clouds. Towards the bottom of the painting. And then finally I'm going to go over the horizon, so more white. This time I'm going to pick up a little bit of pyro red. And I'm going to pull that red across the horizon. Like that. I'm going to put some palette knife strokes over the ocean, so I'm going to mix ultramarine blue, and that our lake fell down to the bottom. Okay, ultramarine blue, turquoise, and white. You need a little more turquoise. So the ocean needs to be 2 to 3 value shades darker than the sky. The palette knife I'm using, by the way, is a number 2 size RGM brand, which is made in Italy. So it's a pretty small knife, and it has a nice rounded tip. I do prefer, for the most part, the palette knives that have a rounded tip versus the ones that have a sharp edge. So there's our ocean. Nice, beautiful, solid color blue. We're ready now to move on to the path. And then we're going to start, and then the dark trees, and then we're going to start adding in the flowers. So I'm going to use this new color, this Naples yellow reddish and titanium white. The path is kind of a salmon color, it's gray, but it's a sort of a salmon colored gray. I'm going to add a little bit of blue to it. just graze it down a little bit. So we want to make sure the path isn't too colorful, because if it's too colorful, it will start to compete with all the color in the flowers. So remember, in your paintings, you need to have colorful areas and you also need to have gray areas. You can't have everything be too colorful all at once. I'm going to mix up a little more of this color. And your path doesn't have to be the same color throughout the whole path. You can modify it a little bit. You can make it a little grayer, a little warmer. You could add some yellow if you want. But I really like this nice salmon color. And I'm going to work a little warmth into the middle of it there. And it's nice to have some texture on your path too, since it looks to be a gravel path. I'm just going to get this corner. Now let's move on to the flowers. Oh no, we're going to do the trees first. Move on to the trees. So I'm mixing Ultramarine blue, Cadmium yellow deep, and I'm also going to use some Madder Lake deep. So nice rich dark. I'm going to mix up a little more Madder Lake Ultramarine blue. And I'm going to let this tree shape extend out over the clouds and over the ocean. That's what's great about oil paint, is you can just paint one color over the next. Now there is a loose tree with a lot of branches that are sort of lacy, so I'm going to make a few strokes like this to indicate the laciness of the branches and leaves. And the pine tree. I'm going to scrape this off. Now we'll start mixing some of the colors of the flowers. So we'll start out with these purple spiky flowers first. So I'm going to use Madder Lake and a little bit of Primal Red. I'm going to mix Titanium White with that. And it's a little too reddish, and I want it to be more violet, so I'm going to add some turquoise to it. And some more white. And some Quinacridone rose. And I'm going to start with a nice big color shape here. Of this red, and it's going to go right off the left side of the canvas. So I'm planning to do all the color shapes first of the flowers, and then the greens after that. And the reason is, it's when you get a little bit of green mixed in with your red, if I were to put the green down first and then paint the red or violet over it, it would make it look very gray. But if I paint the red or violet first and then paint the green over that, that will look fine. So now I'm mixing some more blue in with this color, turquoise blue, and more titanium white. too much white. I'm gonna add some more rose back into it. Now I have a prettier violet. So I'm gonna put that on top of this color shape. And I'm making strokes that are elongated. So I'm gonna scrape this color into a pile here. Now I want to start putting on some of the other reds and violets. So I'm going to mix ultramarine blue and titanium white and a little bit of the quinacridone rose. And this is going to be more of a blue violet. And I'm going to put that down here. Just want to express this beautiful color shape with all these pretty flowers, spiky flowers, and I'm going to connect these two, even though I'll be coming back in with green later. Now make sure your shapes of color don't have flat bottoms. Make sure they're jagged like this, kind of organic looking in their shape. Okay, so now let's mix some yellow. So cadmium yellow medium, titanium white. So yellow in painting usually looks better if you mix a little white with it. Otherwise it can kind of look like, it can look fake, like a gumball or something. I was trying to think of something to relate the look of it to, but if you mix it with white, it looks better. So there's some bright yellow, sort of spiky flowers coming up from the bottom. So I'm making some long strokes for those. There's one. And your color shapes can overlap each other. There's another one. There's one. I'm not going to put in too many. One down here. Across the path, there's also some orange flowers, and we'll use some of this yellow to make that orange. I'm going to put one more bright yellow one in here. I think I'll put it right there. And I'm going to mix some lemon, cadmium lemon, and some vermilion. And some cadmium yellow deep. That's a really beautiful warm color. And I'm going to put that mixture on this side where those orange flowers are. I'm going to mix a little white with it. It needs to be a little lighter. And I'm going to put that right over the ocean. So when I put in big color shapes like the sky and the ocean, I usually make them bigger, and I plan to paint over them. And I do this because it looks more believable. It looks more believable that the ocean is sitting behind these flowers if my paint strokes of the flowers are painted on top of the ocean. So that's the reason that I do that. Now I'm going to mix cadmium lemon and titanium white. So I have a very light yellow, and I'm going to put that behind this purple shape and bring some of those colors up over the dark trees. Like this. And a couple down in between the violet colors. Now's a good time to hop up and stand back and look at your painting and see if you're happy with how the design looks. So I just stepped back and I'm happy with mine so far, so that's a good thing. on the right hand side, there's some deep crimson flowers. So I'm gonna mix this Quinacridone rose with a little bit of ultramarine blue and make a nice, deep, rich crimson color. And I'll make those overlap some of the orange flowers. And I'll pull that color shape right off the canvas. And some of you are probably wondering, why don't I make little tiny marks like this for the flowers? So I can make a few of those, but I sort of mass them together when it's a small painting. If this was a big painting, like the one I showed you at the beginning of the video, then I would add more individual small strokes for the flowers. But when I do something small, I tend to mass the colors together. So there's the crimson flowers. And I've got a nice arrangement now of colors here with the red and the orange. I am going to put some lighter violet flowers at the bottom, so I'm going to use this color plus white and a little more turquoise blue and make a lighter, softer violet pink. And I'm going to put that color right here. So now I've got a nice trio of colors. I have a small and a large and a medium-sized shape too. So always thinking about having a variety of shape sizes. That's really important. And I'm going to take this pink and I'm going to mix more of this rose color into it, plus a little pyro red, because I need to make some more pink flowers, but I want them to be different, a different hue. So I've mixed some titanium white in as well. And I want to have a nice bunch of pink flowers at the bottom here. And these are going to come right over the path. They're going to overlap some of the yellow flowers. They're going to go all the way across, go off the bottom, meet up with these other colors. So I'm going to have a nice bunch of places where my flowers are overlapping. So take a look, stand back again and take a look at your painting from a distance and make sure you're happy with it. I'm going to use the color that's left on my palette plus titanium white and make a very light pink. And I'm going to put some strokes of that here within this big color shape that I first put down. And I'm leaving dark in between these strokes. I'm going to put some of that back here as well. Okay, so now we're ready to start adding green. I'm going to push this off to the side. Squeeze out some more white paint. And we can start adding green. So I'm going to start with this new color, emerald green, and I'm going to mix it right onto where I had some yellow. I'm going to add titanium white to it. And I'm going to put that color over here. That looks beautiful next to the crimson. And I'm going to add a little more yellow to it. I want to have a lot of variety in my greens. I'm going to put some of that more yellowy green next to the orange flowers. Now I'm going to add some more emerald green to it and also a little bit of ultramarine. So I make a darker green and I'm going to put that at the bottom. I'm going to make an even darker dark with ultramarine and Madder Lake. And I'm going to put that underneath here. Now I'm going to mix the emerald green and lemon yellow. And I'm going to mix a little bit of this orange mixture into it. I think I just mixed in too much. I'm going to pick up some more of this emerald color and some more lemon. I just want to get to a nice yellowy warm green. There we are. And I'm going to put a few strokes of that in here. And I want a few of them to overlap the path. Now I'm going to take some of that same color and I'm going to start putting it on the left side of the path. So I'm going to add some titanium white to it for the same color. A little more emerald. And I'm going to start with the bottom half here. Pull that color up right from the bottom. Now some of these paint strokes have some marbling in them. Marbling is when the color isn't perfectly mixed on the palette and it mixes a little bit on the painting as you're placing the colors down. And sometimes it's from not being mixed perfectly on the palette, and sometimes it's from the mixing with some of the wet paint that's already on your canvas, layering it over this pink, for instance. I happen to really like that look. I think that when you see that in a painting and you're looking at it up close, it looks really interesting. But you may prefer to have your colors more perfectly mixed before you apply them. It's all personal taste. So I mixed some emerald green and cadmium yellow. I'm going to put a brighter green here in the center. And I'm not trying to make leaves, but I'm trying to make a nice big shape. And I just sort of lost one of my yellow flowers here in the middle, but I can put it back if I want to. I'll just wait and see. Now I'm going to mix a little more lemon. And a little more white. And I added some more emerald green. I'm really enjoying this emerald green color. It's a great color to have on my palette. I'm going to put that at the top. And I want to have some nice bright green in front of these dark trees. I'm going to stand back and take a look and see how my greens are looking. Very happy with them. Now I want to make some darker greens. So I'm going to use ultramarine blue and cadmium yellow medium. And I'm going to pull this dark green up from the bottom left-hand corner. And it's dark, but I think it still needs to be a little bit darker, but I'll go in and add dark accents later. I'm going to put a little bit in here, and at this point I'm just wanting to cover my canvas. Now let's make a deeper, richer dark. So I'm going to use ultramarine blue, Madder Lake, and I'm going to let it blend with a little bit of what I have mixed underneath. And I'm going to put in some small dark shapes to indicate shadows in the greenery and the flowers. I'm going to take some of that dark and put it back here behind the yellow. I think I'd like to have a little more of that dark shape across the back. of the path. Just sort of frames it in a little nicer that way. I'm going to put some blue-gray into my dark trees. So I mixed ultramarine blue and a little bit of this green. Just going to have that be in the middle of the trees here. So they're still dark, but they've got a little value shift. And I'm going to mix a little bit of this green in with that gray color. And do the outer edge of the tree a little lighter. That's the lacy tree. So I've got warmer gray on top of cooler gray. And I'll put some of that same color here. So I've stuck with my original shapes, but I've just given them some dimension now. Now my purple shape looks a bit flat. I'm going to spray this off. I'm going to mix some titanium white, tiny bit of blue, and I already had some pink mixed in. And I'm going to put some highlights on my purple shape. So I want to keep the outer edge of it dark. I just want to have some highlights within the overall purple shape of a lighter violet. And I'm going to put some of those over here as well. And I'm going to add some rose to it. And I'm going to put a few strokes of it on these spiky flowers. And I'm also going to put back in that yellow flower that got lost. So titanium white, and just a little yellow left on my palette. I'm going to put that back in here. And I'll put another one there. And another one here. I'm going to take some of this orange and I'm going to put some vermilion with it. So I want to have some red flowers somewhere in my painting as well. So I'm just going to put a few choice little pops of red here and there. So by determining, or how do I determine where to put these? I kind of look at my painting and squint down and just kind of imagine where would I like to see a little more of this red. Where would it work? Where would it be too much? And put one there. And I don't want to overdo it. When you get to the end of your painting, that's a good time to slow down. Maybe even hop up and take a little break and then come back to it. I'll put a couple of small red flowers on this side of the path too. So these are smaller marks that I'm making just along the edge of the path. And even though there are no shadows in this picture, I'd like to have a little shadowy edge on the side of my path, and I'm going to add that myself. I'm going to take artistic license and do it my way. So I'm going to use this violet, but I'm going to add some more blue to it. And also a little bit of this orange, because I don't want it to be purple. I just want it to be a violet gray. If it's too purple, it's going to compete with my flowers. So I need a little more blue. And I'm just going to pull some of this color along the side here. I'm going to stand back and see how that looks. That is very pretty. I'm going to put a little more down here. Even though there's no visible flowers there to cast the shadow, you could imagine that off to the side there would be. Now I'm going to add some very light whitish yellow highlights to my yellow flowers. So I've got white with just a tiny bit of yellow. So there's one highlight. There's another. There's another. And one more over here. Oh, two more. You have to have a lighter and lighter touch as you work through your painting. And you're painting thicker paint on top of already thick paint. I'm also going to add a few light highlights to some of my foliage. So I added the dark, now I'm going to add some light highlights with white and just mixing it in with a little bit of the colors. And put a few up here too. So again, just kind of squint down, look and see, where do you need some highlights, where do you need some more color, if so, which colors, and so on. I think I need to have a little greenery in between my pink and burgundy flowers. So there's that. I think we're about done with this painting. I'm going to add a couple more darks in the foreground. Now I'm going to add still a little more green. So I added emerald plus yellow plus white. I feel like I need to have a little more bluish green here in the front. And I think that also balances out all the blue in the ocean. So the very last thing I want to do is add a little bit of white on the ocean, just to indicate maybe a little surf or something, just some little texture marks of some white. They have to be thin, very soft edges, so that's why I blended them. But I've got texture everywhere, but my ocean looks a little bit flat. And if there's a sea breeze, there'll be a little texture on the ocean. And I'm going to make my ocean horizon slightly darker. A few strokes too of a little warmer color in the middle of my path. Sort of make it look like there's a little sunshine on it. All right, I'm really happy with this. Thank you so much for joining me in painting a flower garden by the bay.